If you like this podcast, share it with your friends. You can follow us on social media either on Facebook or on Twitter at cleverramblings. If you have any feedback or comments, please mail us at cleverramblings@gmail.com or visit our website cleverramblings.weebly.com. As always, we really appreciate you listening, and now enjoy today's podcast. Welcome everyone, this is the Clever Ramblings podcast. I'm M.
And my name is Ivan.
And today we're gonna talk about three topics. First, we're gonna talk about if we think Trump's gonna get re-elected in 2 years in the light of the upcoming midterm elections. Then we're gonna look at the concept of perfection and its effect on people. And lastly, we're gonna close with conspiracy theories. Do they have a merit? Are they always bad or also in some way good? So let's start with, do we think that Trump's gonna get re-elected? And as you're the American and you're way closer to the topic, I want to know what you think.
Oh, so you're just gonna throw that one on me?
Yeah, I'm gonna do it.
You know more than anyone that I obviously don't pay attention to most of the shit that's happening.
Okay, well, I'm probably more closely following the American politics
which is
than
crazy,
you do.
than
Yeah,
me. It's just like, I mean, I'm just American.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm always.
But I do have my thoughts though. But
yeah.
Since you follow the nitty gritty details more.
Okay, yeah.
I think this will be better for you to sort of give a backdrop on recent developments, since you know more about it than I do.
Okay, well, so like we told, the midterms are coming up, and it's gonna be interesting if the Republicans can keep their majority or if the Democrats gonna take the House and everything back. And with
They have the Senate. Who has the Senate?
Also, the Republicans, they have everything. Yeah, they have everything. And what really I think is interesting, and that is also an implication if Trump's gonna get reelected, is that a lot of Democrats in really deep red states like West Virginia or Texas, I don't know if you heard about Texas, where this like left-leaning Democrat, I think his name is Beto O'Rourke, again running against, of course, one of the most prominent and also maybe one of the most disliked politicians, Republicans, Ted Cruz. And of course he's like been senator in Texas for a long time, and as you know, Texas is really red. But some polls now have the Democrat leading over Ted Cruz. And so what I think is interesting, that this Democrat is proposing some leftist ideas like Medicare for all and stuff like that. And I think this also makes implication for if Trump's gonna get reelected, because what I think it really depends on is what kind of candidate the Democrats run. Because if you keep it the same way like they're doing it now, or how they did it in the last election with Hillary Clinton, which is basically an elitist and didn't really care about stuff like that, like about the working people, for example. Trump won the Rust Belt, and that was like the big winning point, or like that was so a decisive point that he won that. And Hillary Clinton didn't even go to the Rust Belt, to Ohio, to Illinois, states like that, because she was so sure that she's gonna win that. And Trump did go there, and he said some populist stuff. He said, like, we're gonna bring jobs back, we're gonna give you the things you need in your life to make your life better. And the Democrats were so, I don't know, they didn't care about that, or they were so sure that they're gonna win that, and they didn't run on stuff like that. And when you look at what Trump talked about in the campaign, he was really a populist. He said stuff about the working people, what they want, like higher wages, get their jobs back, like I said, Medicare, expand that, and stuff like that resonated with like normal people. Of course, if you look at it now, he's totally the opposite, doing the Wall Street stuff, doing the wars, which he said he's not gonna do anymore, and of course wanting to eliminate Obamacare. But he run on populist stuff. And so what I think is important is that the Democrats run also left-leaning populists that run on Medicare or Medicaid for all, and ending the wars, and increasing the minimum wage and stuff like this. Then if they run somebody like this, for example, Bernie Sanders, I don't know if he's gonna run because he's really old, but Trump is.
I really hope he doesn't.
But if he's
Bernie,
gonna,
sit down, man.
but if he's gonna do, he's gonna win. They had like the last polls they did, and also the primaries were rigged against Bernie Sanders when he ran against Hillary Clinton. But he was so many points up by Trump. He would have beaten him, and Hillary Clinton was just the worst candidate the Democrats could have competed with.
That's facts.
Donald Trump, yeah. And if they have like somebody who runs on Medicaid, on Medicare for all, on increasing the minimum wage, they're gonna have a good chance that Trump is not gonna be reelected, because a lot of people are disappointed now that he's not doing the stuff he promised, but instead does the stuff for the elites and the industry and the companies. So yeah, I think that is the main point. What are the Democrats gonna run type of candidates?
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Em, for that breakdown. Historically, right, we've had 45 presidents in the history of the United States, and including Donald Trump. Out of those, I guess, instead of doing 45, we could do 44. Yeah. Out of 44 presidents that have been able to run for re-election, only 9 of them have lost. Like, so usually it's called the incumbent president. So the incumbent president is basically who's going up against, like, so if you're incumbent, you're the sitting president, and then you're running against someone who wants to take your spot, basically. Yeah. But only 9 of them throughout history have not been reelected. And that's roughly like 20%.
Yeah, slightly over 20%.
Have not been reelected. So that means about 80% of those incoming presidents who ran for reelection have successfully won. Yeah. So it's historically very, very unlikely that you will
not be reelected.
That you will not be reelected. And so when it comes to Trump, right? Because I believe that it's not just because we're living in this time, but I just think my limited history of United States history, but just the elements that went into Trump's election, right? Social media, artificial intelligence, like you stated, Hillary Clinton, even though she was like a woman, which I think would have been very positive, role model and a positive, face for the United States, that we're progressing in some way. And she, but I think in a lot of other ways, she was basically the worst Democratic candidate that you could have against someone like Trump.
Yeah.
And just with the whole fake news phenomenon, all these things, like, it was like a perfect storm that I think the 2016 election, I think, will go down in history as like a very, very, very landmark time in American history, and world history maybe as well. So considering all that and considering history, I'm really not. Of course, I hope in a lot of ways that Trump doesn't get reelected, for obvious reasons. But I would not. I think he might.
He might if he's gonna run against somebody elitist like Clinton again, or if some celebrity or stuff like that, because they're always talking about running like Oprah,
right,
or The Rock or some shit like that, who you don't really need.
I don't think Oprah has talked about running, but The Rock has talked about running. Of course, Kanye West, which is a whole other story. He's talked about running for president. I think he's moved it to like 2024 because he
wants to run as a Republican then.
Yeah. So, and I just think it really depends on a lot of things, right? If we get another celebrity, I think that in a lot of ways Trump is gonna win again, and it'll be a shit show, right? And it'll just be it will be crazy. I think so. If we have a weak candidate, which I don't really know what's going on in the Democratic Party, but I haven't heard of any besides like Bernie Sanders, who I personally think is, even though he's had some great ideas, I think I'm tired of basically like very very old people getting elected as president. It's kind of like, dude, like you're pushing a certain age, you need to just do something else, because you're not gonna, you know what I'm saying? Like I think we need someone who's a little bit younger.
But still, he has
With fresh
so
ideas.
much good ideas that, like,
Yeah, but there's ideas and then there's implementation, right? And how much energy does Bernie have to implement these things?
well, when he argues about that, he really has a lot of energy, and when he wants to convince people, I don't know if you ever looked at stuff when he's arguing. He seems like he's still
Yeah,
fit
I
for being
have,
president.
but I think in today's age, I don't think that's enough, right? I think that, and I think we've seen what's happened to Barack, like as he aged throughout his presidency. And I think that if you have Bernie who's trying to argue for these more very, very like sort of left ideas, right? I think it's going to be too stressful. And he's what? He's over 70, right? Like so no,
Trump is 70, so.
yeah, and well, he should have never been elected in the first place. But what I'm saying is like I'm tired of old people.
Well, most of the politicians are old. I don't.
Yeah.
What is the age restriction for being president?
The only thing is you have to be over 35.
Okay.
But there's no, I don't think there's no age limit to how old you can be.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have to be at least 35.
I think, isn't Trump the oldest president?
Yeah, he's the oldest president. He was elected when he was 70.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, not to go off on a tangent, but but I think that if Trump's campaign was ran brilliantly in the sense that they were able to use technology and social media in a way that's never been used before, right? And so with that, he already has sort of the leg up on his opponents, right? Especially if it's like a celebrity who may not be up on how they use artificial intelligence and how they've done these things, right? They won't have the resources to do that as Trump would, right? So Trump already has a team in place that will probably use the same or even more sophisticated techniques to somewhat skew public opinion, right? And then also you have the argument, well, he's been here for 4 years already. So there's the experience, put that.
But that was also with Clinton. She always said, like, do you want somebody experienced or do you want like a celebrity? That's the same argument.
I get what you're saying, but what I mean is that that'll be an argument. It'll be a weak argument, but it's still an argument he could kind of make, right? Like he could say, well, I've been president for 4 years, and he could show all these stats that, didn't necessarily have anything to do with him, but he could say, oh, well, unemployment, blah, blah, blah. So like he'll already get people to say, oh, well, like, oh, his presidency was a success and stuff. So we should, do this and do that. And so I think with that, right, he has, and then also with the fake news thing, which doesn't seem to really be changing, like at least us figuring out how to filter information. So I think overall, I think he's in a very sort of prime position to get reelected, especially if they don't pick a very strong candidate. And someone has to emerge like now.
Well, there's also Elizabeth Warren. I don't know if you know about her.
I've heard of.
Yeah, she's like considered in like the left-leaning circles as the second best senator after Bernie. She is good. She has some good ideas, but she's not as good as Bernie because she also does some elitist stuff. But she's also not the youngest, but I would think like she's in her 60s or something. So yeah, she also probably gonna run for president. And if she's gonna run and she's gonna make it through the primaries, because like I said, you don't know because still the majority of the Democrats are the elitist ones and the ones who probably want their candidate to not be left-leaning because that's gonna hurt their donors. So if she's making it through the primary, she has a good chance against Trump. But don't count Trump out of anything because, like, I watched YouTube videos and it's so funny. You look back and from the beginning he said like, yeah, he's never gonna run, and then he run. He's never gonna win a debate. He won the debate, and so on and so forth, and eventually he became the president. So we can talk about this and say now we don't think that, but I think you always have, especially as he's now the president, you always have to give him a chance, and it really depends on what the other side does and how the people are gonna receive that.
And then two, I mean, it's more so has his another factor is besides the candidate and the fact that he's experienced with the techniques that are used to somewhat persuade people. How much has his basically his support base, has it increased or has it decreased? Or has it relatively stayed the same? Because if you look at his Twitter followers have increased, which I argue is that basically people who hate him also follow him in order to make fun of him, which I think does not do anything, because he obviously doesn't. He doesn't care. Like, so, but still, even if it is something, he may have some of those followers may actually be people who support
I know
him.
that his approval rating is right around where like normal presidents are at this time of their
right.
So yeah.
Right. So in that sense, right, like when he first got elected, it was the worst, right, that had ever been, like that any president ever had, right? Yeah. So that means it's going up in some way, right? And so
yeah. It also depends which people are supporting him, because like the election system is just weird because Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, so she got more votes, but because of the state thing,
our electoral, they called it electoral college.
Yeah, Trump won, so it really depends on which kind of people he's gonna. Because if he's gonna persuade the working people again, like in the Rust Belt and the swing states, Florida and stuff like that, if he's gonna convince these people, then yeah. But if it's like his only base is like in the deep red states, and these are people that are still supporting him, the other turned away because they are not satisfied with what he did, but he still has 2 years, so it's not even like soon the election, so you don't know what's gonna happen in 2 years. So yeah,
and then the effect of he's survived all these scandals and stuff like that. So it's like, what can you really throw at him that would seem to dissuade people who already support him from supporting him, right?
Yeah. If you're now supporting him, then you can't be persuaded by anything.
Right, and so I don't know. I think it does have to do with how the midterm elections go, to some extent, because then it'll be somewhat support based. But I think you have people who are campaigning for him in a way, like, Kanye West and stuff like that. I mean, you have this whole weird sort of like clusterfuck of things that are coming together. And I'll make a prediction, right? Because it seems like sometimes we talk about things and we never come to a conclusion.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a prediction that Trump will be reelected. I think it'll happen. I think not only does history point to it, but I think I doubt that the Democratic Party will get its own structure in place enough to where they stop fighting amongst each other, or at least elect someone who is a clear front runner who has enough support from the Democratic side. Because even when Bernie lost to Hillary, there were people who were Bernie or bust, so they didn't vote for Hillary just because they didn't, because Bernie wasn't, which was not productive at all, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't think the Democratic Party has enough internal cohesion in order to elect someone that every Democrat would rally behind, right? Also, the use of technology and stuff, I think, is going to be used again. The fact that nothing's been able to stick on him, right? And the whole fake news phenomenon, which I doubt is going to go away that quickly. I just think that the person who will end up being elected won't be strong enough of a candidate to topple Trump, right? Unless we have a very, 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 like, I think Michelle Obama would have been great to run against Trump, because I think she has support on both sides, right? There may be people who are Republican, but just like some of the values that
but she's also not a politician.
Right, but I'm saying as far as likability, as someone who is educated, she's well spoken. She's liked amongst a lot of people. She did a lot of things for women. She's very progressive, but also in a very her image is also very, very healthy, right? Hillary had a very damaged image, right? And so I think that unless she somehow gets into it, I think there's going to be a whole bunch of celebrities that are going to get into it, and it's going to distract from the real issues, and it's not going to be about Trump. It's going to be about which celebrity is going to run, so we're going to lose sight of the real focus. So I'm predicting that history will repeat itself, how it's tended to go, and I think Trump will be reelected.
Okay, I don't think Trump's gonna be reelected. I don't think so.
And why do you think so?
Because I think that with the midterms and everything in the 2 years, something in the Democratic Party is gonna change, and they're gonna run somebody who's maybe not that left-leaning as Bernie, but that is more left-leaning than Hillary was, and with a better image and anything. And I think at this moment Trump then doesn't have a chance anymore, because basically after the 2016 elections he did so much stupid stuff, and a lot of people around the world think that Trump is a joke, and I think also Americans, a lot of them realize that what they have voted was maybe not the best choice by now, and they gonna think that no, we don't want another 4 years with this crazy maniac who almost started World War III and does stupid shit like tax break for the rich. And I think it also depends on how the media is gonna display the election this time, because if you recall, when Trump ran, it was always Trump, Trump, Trump. I remember one point there, Bernie Sanders gave a long speech, and they cut away from it to show Trump doing something stupid. I don't remember what it was, but it was always, oh, Trump this, Trump that. And so I think now people are gonna concentrate more on the policy, and I hope so. And I think that Trump, he may win. I'm not saying that it's 100%, but let's say call 70% he's not gonna be reelected, but 30% he could be. So that's my prediction.
I'm more 65-35.
I think he's not gonna get reelected, but like I said, never count it out. And maybe I'm gonna change my mind. We still have 2 years. We don't have the candidates, so we can talk about this in 2 years again. And if we still have the podcast by then.
If we have any sponsors, or
if we have sponsors by then, maybe we're gonna get it out to a lot of more people. But yeah, we can then look again what we think, and we probably do, because it's one of the most important events every 4 years. So, but yeah, in my mind right now, I don't think he's gonna get reelected, but like I said, it depends on a lot of the candidate.
Okay, so I mean, we'll revisit this topic maybe in a year or so when it's a little closer, and then again in a year from then.
Yeah.
And see how our opinions have changed. But so we're split. I think he's going to get reelected, and you think he won't. So we'll see.
Yeah.
So with that, we can move on to
concept of perfection.
Yeah. So this was So I guess I'll sort of explain, because this was originally sort of my idea to talk about. And what I mean by perfection is of course people could disagree on what perfection means, right? But I think we all kind of intuitively have an idea or conception or understanding of what perfection is, right?
Yeah.
Like you could, even if you think about it in a religious sense, you could talk about in a way God is perfect, or things that are without flaws.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Or if you talk about for example, I studied philosophy, so the Plato's forms were these perfect sort of idealized absolute truths of things that we only could get imperfect representations of. So for example, if you have if you're a good person, right? So that quality of good is representing you as a person, but because you're a person and because it's a material world, it's going to be imperfect. But there is a perfect, in another realm somewhere, there is that perfect form of good, of what it means to be good, right? So we always have this idea of perfection in a lot of ways, right? a lot of people strive to be perfect in a lot of ways, right? Because, for example, if you find out, say, a person is seen as this really, has a really clean image and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden there's a scandal and all of a sudden this person is like torn down. How could this person do this? And how could and I think sometimes we forget. I mean, of course what they did is most likely bad. But if, it could be as simple as like maybe, they come out with a song that has, lyrics that are very different from the lyrics that they usually do, so that the lyrics are darker this time and it's not more, how the image of them previously was. And then you sort of say, how could this person say these things or blah, 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 or do these things? And we forget that as humans, all of us are inherently imperfect, right? So we all have flaws, right? So every person has good and bad. And there's to me, there's not anyone who is all bad, right? There's even the worst people on earth, I think, and through history have at one point had some good quality about them or done something that was good. And even the most celebrated people, the most, have had flaws. Martin Luther King had flaws. Malcolm X had flaws. A lot of saints throughout the people, for religious people, a lot of the saints that a lot of people look at and revere, a lot of them had flaw. A lot of them had, like, obviously they converted their life from a life of quote unquote sin.
Yeah.
And so I just wonder when I would think about perfection, right? Because in a lot of ways it's personal for me, because I'm in a way a perfectionist in this sense. Like when I try to do for me, I'm kind of either all in or all out. Right. So when I'm writing something, so I'm writing a manuscript right now for my first author paper, and it's very difficult for me to do it because I want everything to be perfect. So every little sentence has to be perfect. And so you sort of freeze, because for me, I never can stop working on it. Right. Or I never can move on. Or so what I do is I tend to just not work on it at all, because I'm like, okay, fine, I'll do something else. Because if it's not going to be perfect, I don't want it to be out. Right. And I think a lot of people struggle with this idea of perfect because a lot of the society stresses
is perfection. Yeah.
Right. And we strive for people to be the best that they can be, and which involves these kind of idealized views of, in a way, being perfect, right? And we don't allow people to make mistakes. And I think it's having a really negative effect on people.
Yeah.
So I mean, what do you think? Do you struggle with perfectionism or the idea?
Yeah, of course, always. If you just by being in the lab and working on stuff, you always want everything to be perfect, being exactly the way you imagined it to be. Everything's gonna work out perfect, and the result's gonna be perfect with your theory or with your hypothesis. And yeah, you always strive with perfection. Also in society, you wanna also look perfect, like have the perfect body. Just look at the amount of people that go to the gym. That's also because they wanna have a perfect body. And
Well, I don't need to go to the gym.
Yeah, because you already have a perfect body.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah, exactly. But besides that, some people have go to the gym, and they don't have the luck that you have with your genes. But
these lesser mortals,
yeah,
don't have the perfect body.
Those
genes.
Peasants. But yeah, so perfection is all around nowadays in our society, and it is, on the one hand, it's good to try to be perfect, because also when I talk to people, and like when I have an exam and I'm disappointed with myself and I got like the third best grade, for example, but I see I could have done better, I could have got the best grade. So they say, like, what's wrong with you? Like, why do you wanna, like, that's really, really good, why want to do that? I'm thinking to myself that, well, it's always good to want to achieve the best you can, and if perfection lets you do that, if perfection is the motivation for you to do the best that you can, then it's good. But on the other hand, like you said, it also can destroy people, because if you don't achieve perfection, it can really bring you down. So I know a lot of people that try to be perfect, but they can't, and they fall into depressions. And so I think it's really hard to, on the one hand, like I said, it's good because you may try harder than you would if you don't want to be perfect. But on the other hand, it really can give you mental, like
it could stress it could add a lot of load, a lot of heavy stress to you, and cause you to be overly self-critical.
Yeah, and even if you don't have to be, because I think perfection can never be reached. I think that already in nature, there's, I don't know if you heard about the Darwinian demon. That is an animal that has adapted to its surroundings perfectly without any disadvantages. So I think also from nature, perfection can never be reached. There's nothing in nature that is perfect, quote unquote. So I get why people try to be, but I think like nobody ever can achieve perfection in no field whatsoever. I don't think there's any possibility. Maybe sports, maybe science, maybe anything. I don't think perfection can ever be reached, and it's also a man-made concept. So
then if perfection can never be reached, do you think there's a reason why? Because this is probably somewhat evolved, right? This idea of wanting, like this idea of perfection is somewhat emerged, right?
Yeah.
And you have to think, why then, if we know that perfection can never be attained, right? Why do so many people strive for it or expect it in other people? Because you would think, like, you could say, because I know, for example, if someone said to me, well, you know, we're all, like, your manuscript is not going to be perfect, blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, like, I get that on a realistic sense. But then when I'm doing it, I still fall back into, oh, shit, I want this thing to be perfect. Right?
Yeah.
And so how has it, do you think it's evolved? It's sort of evolved or emerged for the purpose of making sure that you strive for your best, right? Because it's something we never can achieve, but it's something you always strive for.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be that way back it evolved so that people do stuff and they strive for perfection and are satisfied with the way things are right now. And always try to push society or themselves forwards. I think that's one of the reasons why it evolved. But
yeah, and I wonder, because I mean, you know, in perfectionism sometimes like there's a lot of examples of when perfectionism went too wrong, right? So I see it a lot more in music, for example. Dr. Dre, one of the best hip hop producers of all time, or one of the best producers of all time in any genre.
Yeah.
He was supposed to come out with this album called Detox, right? And he started working on this thing in 2001, 2002, something like that. And it was one of these huge sort of, like, I think he has had every big musician throughout that time period work on it. Right? And he must have at least 600, 700 records, or even more, at this point, maybe 1,000 recorded for it. And at the last minute, he decided, I'm not going to release it because it's not perfect. If it's not perfect, he's one of the pinnacles of like perfectionism.
Yeah.
Right. And he doesn't want anything to come out this subpar. Right. Drake is apparently is another one of those people. Like, he works on stuff and over again. Eminem is the same way. Lil Wayne, in a way, he's talked about him in a way recording a lot and making sure like everything is there. You see this, right? And these people, but then what happens is you can, like, Drake will be a perfectionist, but then he'll put out an album that a lot of people don't necessarily like, right? Like, he's never had what's called, like, what we consider a universally classic album. I mean, I think Take Care is a classic album, but that's my opinion. But the hip hop as a whole hasn't recognized it as a classic, right? And it could be because there's somewhat, and this has happened with Dr. Dre, it's happened with Eminem and Lil Wayne. Like, sometimes perfectionism gets in the way of you just doing something, right?
I think you have to find a good balance between being satisfied with yourself and striving for perfection. You have to find a good balance, because you can acknowledge perfection and be like, I wanna be perfect, but also at the same time being like, if I'm not achieving that, I'm fine as long as I gave my best shot and I'm proud of what I did. You shouldn't be satisfied with just the way things are. You should strive for perfection, but if you don't achieve it, it shouldn't mentally bring you down, or like you said, that you're not satisfied with the product and that's why you don't do it in the first place.
Yeah. So I guess in closing, it's sort of, none of us are perfect, and it's okay. Everyone's gonna make mistakes, right? But you should strive to be the best that you can be. But know that things will never necessarily be perfect.
That's life. Nothing is
right,
perfect.
Which is great advice, but of course, me and you are probably going to go back to being very self-critical of ourselves, and it's even though we know that it's bad to do it, I think it's just sometimes of a character trait, for a lot of people. Yeah. So, and I think if anything we could do to help this thing is more like reinforce to people and to just society that, like, it's like you're going to make mistakes and it's okay. You can't be, and I think we as a society, we as human beings, need to stop expecting so much from people.
Yeah.
I think we put way too much pressure on how people act, right? Like if someone is rude to me or something like that, I kind of just assume, like when a lot of people would say, "Oh, well, fuck you, blah blah blah, you're an asshole," I try to say, well, maybe that person is having a bad day. Yeah. Right. Even though it's bad that they're taking out on me, but still, like, I'm not going to say that they're a horrible person. Now, if they keep doing this, then I'm like, all right, well, maybe you are kind of a dick. But even in that way, I don't know. Maybe that person is going through something. They've been, so I try to, like, allow people to make mistakes and not get too upset about it. But again, back to not being perfect. I'm not perfect at this, right? Sometimes I do, just based on one behavior, I call someone an asshole or something like that, right? But yeah. It's okay to make mistakes. We're all growing.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I guess with that we'll close that topic, and now we will talk about conspiracy theories. And I'm warning all of you that this is the point where M has already pre-warned me, so I should pre-warn you that M is probably gonna rant about his conspiracy theories. So M, you lead us in this, because I'm prepared for the rant.
Okay, so let me just tell you from the beginning, most of the conspiracy theories are stupid, and I don't know why people believe it. And it makes me very angry that so many people believe in stupid shit that we already disprove. For example, let's start with probably the most prominent one, which is the flat earth theory, which is just stupid. But apparently people do believe in this stuff. And I read an article online with, I don't know, it was some conference or stuff, and they started to make everything so that everything makes sense. They said that Australia is just an invention of the government. So Australia doesn't even exist. And for example, if you fly on the plane, all the pilots are into the conspiracy theory. And they fly you to another island. All the Australians you ever met are actors and all this stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, how, like, ignorant do you have to be to believe in stuff like that? And I just don't get why people would do that. Like, even the conspiracy theory is so complicated and has so many actors that none of them ever in their life would go out there and, like, mess up and say something stupid or, like, give it away. Like, all the people that act on this are so perfect that they, like, again to the perfect topic, that they don't make any mistakes. And I think it's also kind of narcissistic, because, like, everybody is wrong except you. You are the only one that knows the truth. You are the one that discovered this, like, this conspiracy theory that the government is pushing on all the people. But now you're so important, you are so smart, you're whatever, that you discovered, no, everything is wrong. And going away from the flat earth theories, there are a lot of others, like the chemtrails, where they say, like, planes are spraying chemicals that control the population during their flights. That's also, I think, just stupid, because imagine like it's spraying randomly over the country. Also, the people that would control this, the government, they would also be affected by the chemtrails. But you made a point what one could argue why they may be true.
Well, I mean, I did ask a friend. I saw like a video one time on chemtrails, and I sent it to one of my friends, right? And he basically like shitted on me and was like, "Oh, uh, yeah, it's like this is very illogical. Like the fact that you believe this is completely nonsense thought to have, and blah blah blah." And I'm like, well, I don't believe in the chemtrail, mostly for the reason why you say, right? Because it would be affecting those people too, right? It'd be affecting the government too. But I think even though you can say like, okay, they're doing this, they're spraying this, we don't really actually really know, do we? Right? Like we sort of a lot of these things are kind of like, it's basically you read something, I read something. Like none of us are loading whatever they're spraying, none of us are loading it into the plane ourselves. Right? And so in a way you kind of have that sort of at least a little bit of uncertainty. And I think that's where a lot of these conspiracy theories come from, right? They come from something that maybe you just doubt this, whether it's because you don't believe the government or you don't believe in the authority of whatever is telling you this is the case, right? Just to reiterate, I do not believe necessarily in chemtrails, but I would put it like this: I wouldn't be surprised if whatever is going up there is not exactly what they're saying, right?
But that would be only for pollution or stuff. I don't think they're doing like some mind control shit.
No, I don't know. Not something like that. But I wouldn't be surprised if something is happening. Like if they're doing something that they're not necessarily telling us. But that's just because, again, I don't trust the government necessarily, right? But that I know that's just me, and I wouldn't like necessarily, go out and like, campaign that yeah they're doing something. I'm not like that crazy about it, but at least I wouldn't be surprised if something else is going on. But I think a lot of these conspiracy theories come from a deep distrust, right? And whatever authority is telling them what supposedly what happened. And the way that I'm not against people having conspiracy theories, because I think in some ways it could be good in a sense that it forces people to think creatively.
Or critically, yeah.
Or critically, right? Because, like, for example, it's never good to just believe everything that is told,
exactly,
right?
Yeah.
And so, say for example, flat Earth, right? You could, for some reason, you could believe this, blah blah blah, and it's okay. But then, as you learn more, you realize that there's really, like, with flat Earth, to me, the reason why that's like to me the biggest one that I just don't understand why people still think that's the truth is because I shared a meme like a little while ago where it's like every other planet was a sphere and then
yeah.
and the Earth was flat, and it was like it's amazing the universe does this type of stuff, right? And I was just like, but then some people would argue that no, that's just the wrong image, blah blah blah. Like we don't really see spheres in the outside. And it's just with when I evaluate conspiracy theories, right? I look for a few things, right? I look at first of all, how supported the conspiracy theory itself, right? What the authority was telling us, right? How critical have they thought about it? How critical is the evidence that's been supported against the conspiracy theory, right? So if it's something that we kind of can't prove 100%, like we kind of can't show, like demonstrate really solidly ourselves, then I say, okay, well, let me at least see what the conspiracy theory has to say, right? Now look at, okay, well, what evidence do they present? And also, how complicated is the conspiracy? Like you said, some of these conspiracy theories are just so complicated that it's just like, how do you think all these things came together that this happened? But for me, the most important thing is when I evaluate, so not only complexity or evidence for and against, but I think also what is the motivation as to why you believe the conspiracy theory is true, right? And in the sense of the flat Earth, right? If the Earth is flat, right? Why does that matter at all?
Oh, well, let's say, yeah, I would think at
Why would the governments lie about what shape the Earth is? Like,
exactly
what
what
purpose is
benefit
that?
do they have? Yeah.
Right, and so I look at it and say, like, I could understand if it, if you believe someone lied because, okay, they'll make more money off of this idea or this idea, right? If you think this way,
Yeah.
then I'll tend to say, okay, I'll give it more of a shot of listening to what they have to say. But with the flat, like, for example, with the flat Earth, I'm just like, what? Like, I don't understand why. Like, one, there's so much evidence, so many ways you could show that it's wrong.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, it's like, why would all the governments go up in space and then just say that it's like, why would they lie to us? What point does that have to
And
do?
I think like
It's
even back in the day, people probably believed that it was flat. So then from changing from flat to like being round, and then like I don't know why they would do this. Like people believed that the Earth was flat, and then the government said like, no, now we're gonna convince everybody that it's round because we don't want them to know that it's flat. If you look back in the Bible, for example, there are also references that they think like the Earth is flat. So probably a few thousand years ago, they thought that the Earth was flat, and when the first evidence came up, they changed their mind. Why would the government be like, now we have to change the mind of the people that think now that the Earth is flat? We have to reprogram to think that the Earth is round or a sphere, although the Earth is flat in reality. I don't know why anyone would do that and what benefit. Like they don't make any money off that. They can control people with that. It's just.
But it was like, what's the point, right?
Yeah.
I'll tell you one conspiracy theory that I do that I do actually like a lot. Is I forget what it exactly what it's called, but it's like I think it's something like the other Earth. Is it the other Earth? Like the idea that aliens have visited us before, and have somehow, or maybe it's called an ancient astronaut theory or something like that. It's something like that, where basically it was this show in the History Channel that I got like addicted to.
The
listening
History Channel.
No, it was really.
It's always about aliens. You know the meme with the one.
Yeah, with that guy.
Yeah, aliens.
It was him. And like, I just, cause I would always flip through like the Science Channel and then like the History Channel and all that stuff. And so, it was like they were saying like how these marvelous structures that were built in thousands of years before we have current understanding of how like it's possible to have done this, right? That how are these structures so much, in a lot of ways, superior to what we can even do now, right? A lot of these structures are even, like, considering the technology they had, how were they able to build it when it's hard? It will be very difficult for us to build such things now with all technology that we have, right? I think a lot of it, of course, is due to the fact that we just don't understand, right? We never have a perfect, speaking of perfect, we never have a really perfect understanding of the past, right? Because things have been lost due to erosion or just naturally, things have eroded and blah, blah, blah. So you can sort of see how we'll always have this incomplete picture, right? But sometimes I look at certain things, it's like, well, if you believe that there are aliens out there, right? And I tend to believe in this fact that there are. Now how far they are from us, but then you could also talk about, well, if they're very advanced, then they could obviously, probably travel through wormholes and stuff. Basically, I never discount the fact that there may have been some type of entity that visited the Earth before humans or before we were really developed enough in order to care about it, right? Now, does that mean we have alien DNA? I don't know. I don't necessarily go that far, but I wouldn't, if it happened, we found it, somehow there were aliens that were interacting with early humans or something like that, I would not be surprised. It would not be like something that would like shatter my world, right? Because that's also because I just do believe that aliens are there somewhere, and I don't believe we're the only things in this, we're the only beings in this universe.
Yeah.
And so that is one that a lot of people say it's crazy, right? How could you believe that it's alien? But I mean, I wouldn't, it's not necessarily me believing it or disbelieving it, but it's like, okay, well, why not?
there's at least a greater possibility than, for example, at the flat Earth thing that is clearly wrong.
Right, exactly. To me, at least watching that show, right, Ancient Aliens and everything, like, it hasn't convinced me, but it's shown. It's only thing that's convinced me is that okay, there is a possibility.
Yeah.
Right. There's nothing about flat Earth theories that have convinced me that that it's flat, right? And so, yeah, but I think despite obviously a level of stupidity that obviously it can also breed, I think it does encourage people to think productively. Like, I mean, not productively, but
critically.
Like critically and original. I do wish though that those same people who would watch hours and hours of conspiracy theories would actually try to apply some of that originality and critical thinking to actual shit that we know is here. Like instead of watching 13 so some of these conspiracy theory videos are probably like really dumb long, right? Like 4.5 hours, something like that, of why the Earth. First of all, someone needs 4.5 hours to explain to you like why. It's probably some bullshit, but say it's like 4.5 hours. You could have done that. You could have used that time of like, I don't know, trying to like cure a disease or something. Like if some of these people like put more of their effort.
4 hours to cure one disease. That's some good research.
No. What I'm saying. I only need 4 hours.
Oh man.
No, but I'm saying like if they use some of that time that they're using to critically like dig for other facts and stuff like that, they could be doing something more productive. Is what I'm trying to say. I mean, you could write a song, you could record a song and release a beautiful song. You could write a poem. You could do a lot of shit in that time.
Yeah.
Right. And so sometimes I think that some people who are very talented and very smart, right, in a lot of ways, they're focusing that on shit that's like you can't either prove nor disprove, really. And so it's like, because of that, why don't you try to focus on something else? That's all I wish, right? Even people on social media who are like very, very talented with like making memes and stuff like that. It's like, man, if only these people would like do something that would try to help the world.
Well, memes kind of help the world.
Yeah, they do, but sometimes it's like, damn, you're really, really good at making memes, yet you're struggling, like you don't have a job or something like that. It's like you could, you're obviously a creative person. You could create something and in a way it could like help feed you.
Yeah.
Right, help support you. You could find a way to maybe market your memes or something like that. You could do something like that. So yeah, so that's how I feel. So I think they're not always that bad. I think some definitely are a lot dumber than others, but some are actually pretty interesting. So I never close my mind to conspiracy theories, because I think it's very easy to just get caught up in what everyone else thinks, and you never really get progress that way by just thinking the same way that everyone else does.
Yeah. Well, I close my mind to the ones that are just stupid. And
yeah.
I think that there are different degrees or different like how much conspiracy makes sense from the aliens, for example, compared to the one flat Earth. If it's interesting and it's not like 99% say this and like the 1% says no, we have the real evidence, then I'm probably not gonna say, oh, let's look into this one. But if it makes more sense, of course, why not? And also to the alien one you said, it also could bring some benefits, like better understand the past. Like if we don't believe that humans did this, maybe we can find out how they actually did this. If it's possible, and if aliens didn't do that, it would be interesting to know how they actually did it.
Right.
And this conspiracy theory, just by saying it, maybe there's a possibility that humans didn't do it. We are not satisfied with just saying, yeah, humans did this, and we don't have to investigate why and how they did it. But now we can think about how did they do it? Why did they do it?
Right. I think we could ask better. We can, for some conspiracy theories, such as like the alien one, I think it helps us to ask more precise questions.
Yeah.
Right. Like in ways that we could somewhat look at different things and ways that we could be wrong. Right. So I think in that way it's fruitful to ask certain out, like, very radical ideas. So
I think all in all, there are really a lot of dumb and stupid conspiracy theories, but some have their benefits and they let you start thinking more critically and may also bring some benefits.
Right. And with that, we will end this podcast. I think I really like these topics that we chose. They're really good.
Yeah, and we're gonna see you the next time.